There's nothing worse than a gaming franchise that overstays its welcome, and there's respect to be had for when one can read the room and silently walk away. But there's also nothing more triumphant than when a series returns in a grand comeback. There's a few that I feel are overdue for such a revival. These are my top 10 most wanted video game comebacks. If you combine the homemaking vibes of Animal Crossing with the special collecting Pokemon ideal, you'd get something resembling Viva Pinata, and considering those elements handled by the impeccable pedigree of Rare, I'm surprised this one didn't last long. The love and work put into these fun animals and their personalities could carry a whole lot more than we got in just a couple installments, even if the gameplay is understandably hard to iterate further. If we just got the Pokemon treatment with some new pinatas and environments every now and then, I'd keep throwing money at it. Microsoft is really sitting on a goldmine, if you ask me. Tell me there wouldn't be a billion viral tweets about how cute everybody's Cinnamonkey, Rawbean, and Bark are. I saw the commercials for Billy Hatcher and the Giant Egg on TV when I was a kid constantly, and having such a charming character hammered into my psyche had me thinking, yes, this kid will be the new star, the new champion to stand alongside Sonic in the Sega Hall of Fame for years to come. Okay, maybe the attempt at starting this new IP was a little soft-boiled. I don't think you'd have to scramble to make Billy Hatcher into something great. With little extra poaching, you could make these cute designs really glow. And considering how satisfying the egg rolling mechanic already was, I think it would just take a bit more effort to look at the sunny side of this sadly long-missing mascot. So I used my egg puns up, or are there more I can shell out? I think we're all tired of my yolks. As long as we're in our new stretch of budding kaiju mania, why don't we unearth Rampage from its 10-ton grave? We had a whole movie and that had a tie-in video game, but I didn't even know that existed until I was told it was floating around arcades. This seems like exactly the kind of thing that's been begging to be put on the Switch with updated art and expanded upon gameplay. Rampage isn't exactly an IP held in strong repute, it's pretty repetitive and mindless, but I think I speak for a lot of players when I say the series' sense of humor, memorable environments, and penchant for iconic monster characters kept players coming back. I bet there's a lot that could be done in way of unique monster powers and minigames that could stave off the mundanity that put Rampage in the ground in the first place. We're living in the revival of side-scrolling beat-em-up franchises. River City, Double Dragon, Battletoads, Streets of Rage, they've all been experiencing some new return to glory, but a particularly big one seems to be missing, and that's Final Fight. If we're being honest, Final Fight doesn't have a ton to set it apart from the slew of peers I just mentioned, besides Capcom's penchant to memorable characters. But these one's icons have developed so much from their cameos in Street Fighter and Marvel vs. Capcom that I bet there's a ton you can do to make something really distinct. We all learned our lesson from the misnomer-bearing Final Fight Streetwise. Keep it 2D, keep it bright, and maybe even adapt the chibi style from Mighty Final Fight if it helps keep the gameplay snappy and responsive in a modern landscape. I think all specifics aside, what we really want is Cody, Hagar, and friends slamming some memorable bosses into the concrete. Oh, and don't forget Lucia. I'd really like her to be in the game for, reasons. I gotta wonder whatever happened to cartoony boxing games. Punch-Out is the best ever, and it's been a long time since we've seen that series, but I've gabbed on about that one for a whole video. Just as worthy of a comeback and missing for even longer has been the Ready to Rumble series.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Let's get ready to rumble!
These were simple, accessible boxing games with zany pugilists and tight, addictive gameplay. I think the real charm is the game's glitzy atmosphere. It really captured the feel of being a celebrity athlete brawling for glory. All the way up to the rooftop final boss with, I shit you not, Michael Buffer himself.
And now, this boxer needs no introduction. That's because I am your next opponent. Let's get ready for Rumble Man! Buffer no more. Just me, Rumble Man!
There was this weird period during the Wii era. Ready to Rumble came back, but with a completely new and unrecognizable cast, and equally disparate gameplay that controlled like mud. There was also Facebreaker, which I feel had to be some degree of spiritual successor. That's a game that existed, believe it or not. Just bring back Ready to Rumble's fun characters and rivalries and let a whole new generation of basement gamers pass the controllers around in the name of competition. A narrative in this video I keep revisiting involves game series that I have a soft spot for, even if they didn't light the world on fire or reach their full potential. I think that there's a lot to explore with a game that was good and could be so much better in a modern context, rather than fixing something that isn't necessarily broken. And I don't think any entry on this list fits that mold more than Jak and Daxter. The Jak games have some rough edges. They're certainly not bad, but I think it's a trilogy that's a little confused. It went from platformer to GTA-like to shooter over the course of its short lifetime. I'd really love to see what a modern developer would do with the dynamic duo. This is the entry on this list I have the least vivid image in my head as to what a new entry could be, because a lot of the appeal of Jak and Daxter is their versatility, and whether returning to the series' more lighthearted roots, fully embracing the more grim edges of Jak 3, or just striking something entirely new, I'd be fascinated by a new Jak and Daxter. The design ethos of the world and characters would be breathtaking with modern graphics, and I can just imagine what kind of cool mechanics can be done on a modern PlayStation utilizing Eco and potentially an independent Daxter for some maneuvers and side missions. The sky is really the limit with these two, and I hope someone out there sees the same possibilities I do. This is probably the series on this list with the fans that have suffered the most. Capcom has cruelly dangled the notion of a new Darkstalkers game on a hook, and seemingly just using any excuse possible to brush any fan outcries off their shoulders. The malleable flexibility of Darkstalkers' art style combined with peerlessly distinct characters would call for, in an ideal situation, a whole new scope that Capcom's 3D fighting team hasn't tackled yet with its recent Street Fighter or Marvel vs. Capcom games. I also think Capcom's character designs have been better than ever. If we see the energy put into newcomers introduced in Resident Evil 8 and Street Fighter 5, pulled into creating a handful of brand new macabre monsters for a new Darkstalkers, I think some all-time phenomenal fighting game characters might occur. I'm tired of settling for just seeing Morrigan in the odd crossover or cameo. Society is begging for Darkstalkers to rise from its ill-deserved grave. I could devote a whole composite entry to arcadey driving games as a whole. I made an entire video on the MIA Vigilante 8 franchise, and you'll surely hear me talk about Twisted Metal one of these days, but this particular spotlight is saved for one chaotic driver in particular.
Hey, come on over, have some fun with Crazy Taxi! Yeah!
First Crazy Taxi has only 4 characters and 2 maps, but it's created such an ideally arcadey and addicting game style that's made it impossible for it not to be some kind of classic. Some of my fondest gaming memories are the blazing errands of Crazy Taxi, and I'd give anything to relive that in a new coat of paint and some kind of expansion. Crazy Taxi had personality, and as thorough spades had capacity for urban destruction. I just love this sketchy graffiti art style and Spring Breaker aesthetic, complemented nicely of course by some Offspring jams. Over 3 games, Crazy Taxi expanded nicely with additional characters and locations, but no terribly convenient way to have them all in one place. Outside of some cameos and Sega crossovers and mobile games, we never got the Crazy Taxi HD collection I know would get all kinds of attention. If Sega needs to reaffirm faith before committing to a new installment, I dare them to release a bundle of all 3 games on modern consoles, because I know people would love it and more than fund a brand new game. I don't care if perhaps Crazy Uber wouldn't have the same ring to it, we gotta make this comeback happen. I won't mince words, I don't think there's anything on the market that can scratch the itch a new Sly Cooper would. After a pretty by-the-numbers platformer beginning, Sly 2 onward turned the IP into one of the most distinct franchises on the PlayStation, blending exceptionally satisfying acrobatic platforming with the brilliantly structured heist simulator hub-level layout that makes you feel like you're playing out one of those absurdly intricate Ocean's 11 break-in plots. That's nothing to speak to the insanely appealing environments you're stealing from. Ranging between beautiful Venice and frigid, breathtaking British Columbia, those environments filled to the brim with memorable characters and villains. I love Ratchet and Clank as much as the next gamer, make no mistake, but I can't help but wonder if they locked Sly and Jack in a basement somewhere, because they were sharing the spotlight so nicely back on the PS2. Bring me back to the diverse and intricate team dynamic of the eclectic Cooper gang and their quickly changing pace of their engaging heists. This crew is beyond deserving of one last big score. The sheer white-knuckle feeling I got from the most intense races I've experienced in F-Zero X are not something that have ever been replicated, and the fact that Nintendo continues to deprive modern generations of anything in way of a new F-Zero experience is not very boost-powered of them. The fact that we had a racing game with 30 racers at once and insanely intricate racetracks back on the N64 boggles the mind. Just imagine what could be done on the Nintendo Switch and beyond. F-Zero occurs in a rich and lived-in world I'm desperate to return to. It never even inched toward patronizing or talking down to its audience, gaining a reputation as a tough-as-nails, unforgiving racer with a high skill ceiling but an insanely rewarding one. These are all things that I think may have contributed to its downfall, but the fact that it experienced its death before it could hit its stride in the era of massive multiplayer online competition is a tragedy, because every aspect of F-Zero feels tailor-made to thrive in hot-blooded competition and chaos. I can barely fathom how this IP can go from warranting a whole anime adaptation during its GameCube days to becoming some kind of hushly whispered forbidden fruit among its creator circles. Nintendo has taken every measure to quash the possibility of a new F-Zero. Over 2 decades of his home series absence, Captain Falcon is probably more famous as a fighter than as a race car driver. I'm just going on and on at this point, but this is how every F-Zero fan has felt for 18 years. I can't fathom why F-Zero has left us when the world needed it most. We can only hope that sooner or later our voices will be heard and that the Blue Falcon will take flight once more. Thanks again for watching. This was a really fun one to put together. Any excuse to play some old games. And if you want to see me gab and yammer on some more about Lord knows what number of old video games no one plays anymore, hit that big subscribe button. Thanks so much. Have a nice day.